Is rebranding a good idea?
I'm not a fan of rebrands, especially if you have a really popular brand.
But if you have a bad brand,
Typically, if something has a negative connotation, a rebrand's not a bad idea.
how do big companies deal with rebranding?
But they changed the name to Meta because they're like, hey, we're focusing everything on the metaverse.
This is Neil Patel, helping you succeed through online marketing.
All right, so we are going to talk about if rebrands are a good idea. So let's talk about a recent rebrand. Here's an example for everyone. Facebook changing into Meta. So that is a rebrand. You change your logo, you change your name, and sometimes there are good results, sometimes there are bad results. So we're here to talk about this a little more and share some examples.
So I'm not a fan of rebrands, especially if you have a really popular brand. If you're new, no problem, not a big deal. But if you already have a lot of revenue, and a lot depends on the person, a lot could be $1 million, a lot could be 100 grand, a lot could be $1 billion. I would not consider rebranding. I just don't like it. I think it's okay to adjust the logo and the design of certain aspects. Like if you look at the Apple logo, has changed over time, but why not just keep the same corporate name? Or you could create a parent company like Google did. So Google's still Google, but now they have Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google. That I don't think is a big deal. But if I was like Facebook, I wouldn't be like, we're now known as Meta. Like Facebook.com is still Facebook. I don't think you would ever see them changing from Facebook to Meta.com, but they're trying to go after this whole metaverse, and they're trying to make a whole different narrative. But generally speaking, I think it's a bad idea to just change the name of anything that's popular or that makes money, because in most cases that I've seen, it typically goes down, and I haven't really seen too many cases where it goes up.
Well, we got one over here. So you remember this one for sure because we're both from California. Remember when Time Warner became Spectrum? Because Time Warner had such bad reviews that they had to rebrand. So it was like a completely fresh thing. Oh, sorry, Charter to Spectrum.
So in that case, I think a rebrand works really well, because if you have a terrible name and everyone knows you for crappy product, crappy service, even if you have revenue, it usually can't hurt. And what's funny is when they announced Spectrum, everyone's like, oh, this is a cool new thing. No, it's not. They just did a rebrand. But to the consumer, they try to spin it as something new and fresh.
I'm going to show you some good rebrands, though. I do agree on the Facebook. They should have just kept Facebook, honestly. Both Neil and I have ad agencies. Sometimes we say Meta, sometimes we say Facebook. It starts to get confusing.
And wait, just to clarify here, the Facebook version is very different than Google. Google's just like, we just have a parent company because we do more than search, and it's called Alphabet, and we own a lot of stuff. Facebook, even though there's still Facebook.com and it's not a crazy, terrible rebrand, I think a terrible one would have been if they got rid of Facebook altogether and they just said it's Meta. But they changed the name to Meta because they're like, hey, we're focusing everything on the metaverse. Well, if you look at the general world, none of us are really like, yeah, we need a metaverse. It's just like, we're cool with the Facebook that you have, the Instagram that you have, change your algorithms a bit, focus on this type of content. But they're the ones shoving the metaverse down our throats versus the general population being like, yes, we want a metaverse. Now, when you look at AI, at all the consumers out there in the whole world right now, even though some people are afraid of AI, majority of the world is embracing AI. You look at ChatGPT, according to SimilarWeb, it's the 19th most popular website on the web. And globally, like I'm even in Brazil right now, I asked a room, how many of you guys use ChatGPT? And these were executives from really large corporations that are global corporations. Almost 100% of them raise their hand. And there's probably like 50, 60 people in the room. But the point I'm getting at is Meta's rebrand was more like, hey, we want to shove the metaverse down. And it had nothing to do with what people wanted.
So I pulled up this. Here's some incredible rebrands here, Neil. So Patagonian toothfish. Now it's called Chilean sea bass. I think that's a successful rebrand because I don't want to eat a toothfish. I just think about the teeth,
Yes.
right? Mayonnaise. I oftentimes I forget that aioli is just mayonnaise.
I didn't know that aioli is just mayonnaise. I try not to eat mayonnaise or aioli. So.
Aioli sounds a little better, right? Pleather is now vegan leather. Okay, I like that. Statistics, data science, machine learning, AI, crypto to Web3. Anyway, I think these top three are good examples. So your mileage may vary. It depends on the situation that you're in. And we just wanted to share a couple of examples here. Anything else, Neil?
But if you look at the examples that you shared, typically if something has a negative connotation, a rebrand is not a bad idea. But I hate it when companies do a rebrand and there's not any negative issues or their business is still growing well.
That's a good point. Okay, let's talk about yours. Okay, so Neil Patel Digital is now MP Digital.
That's true, because too many people felt it was relying on Neil Patel, and they're like, oh, what happens if Neil's not on my campaign? And so we kept the initials, we just shortened it. We don't even go by NP Digital internally. We just go NPD because it's too long. What's funny is we try to be NP Digital from day one. Technically, the agency was supposed to be called Patel. I couldn't get Patel.com. And then we were trying to be NP Digital, and we couldn't get NPDigital.com, made the guy an offer, and he came back like a year and a half later after we created the company, and then he accepted the offer. Or else we would have been NP Digital from day one. Now, if you have any questions, leave a comment below. I'm here to answer them and help you out. If you enjoyed the video, like it, share it, tell people about it. Thank you very much.